This election is a choice between a Trump recovery and a Biden depression. Biden's plan will crush America.
Well, guess what? First thing I do is going to repeal this Trump tax cut. Oh, not a joke.
I think in some ways the biggest immediate effect of the choice we're going to make on Election Day is between the Trump recovery and the Biden depression. Now, you may think that's strong language, but let me explain why I think it's accurate and real. The fact is that we had a remarkable period of economic growth, and we had, as a result, people going to work, coming out of the woodwork.
Another big jobs report, the U.S. economy adding 263,000 jobs in April. The unemployment rate sinking to a 49-year low.
Wow, lowest since 1969.
You know, what's very clear is that candidate Trump, from his many years of business experience, already knew what he wanted to do to get this economy rolling. And in fact, he entered office so aggressively with so many good ideas and pushed so hard that even CNN admitted it had been an amazing start in getting the economy roaring.
But something feels different about the Trump economy.
I've created over 1 million jobs since I'm president.
There's a momentum, an energy, a bravado.
The stock market is way up again today, and we're setting a record literally all the time.
It's as if corporate America, Wall Street, and even blue-collar workers suddenly have their mojo back.
If you were working in a blue-collar job, your salary was going up every single year, going up actually at a faster rate than at the very top. So that for the first time, we were seeing some significant steps towards easing income inequality. And the result was that the workforce grew. And even though the workforce was getting bigger, the unemployment numbers kept coming down because there were more jobs being created than there were people looking for work. And so you actually began in some parts of the country to have a significant shortage. By February of this year, we had achieved, because of the Trump policies, we had achieved the lowest unemployment rate for African Americans in history, the lowest unemployment rate for Latinos in history, the lowest unemployment rate for women in, I think, 70 years. All of this was working towards people going back to work, improving their lives, beginning to pursue the American dream once again. And the reasons were policy, that Donald Trump, with all of his years in the business community, with his understanding of what creates jobs, what gets investments, what leads people to start businesses, how to get entrepreneurs excited, all of that had been brought to bear. And for the first time since Ronald Reagan, you had an aggressively pro-entrepreneur president, and that got entrepreneurs excited. Life was fun. They were making money. They were creating jobs. And then Trump followed a very aggressive policy of going after trading partners who had frankly got deals that were way too easy.
It's my great honor to announce that we have successfully completed negotiations on a brand new deal to terminate and replace NAFTA and the NAFTA trade agreements with an incredible new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement called USMCA. He started with Canada and Mexico, and people said it was impossible. You can't possibly redo NAFTA. But he did. And in the end, we got a much better deal for American workers, for American farmers, for American companies. He pivoted to our biggest trading partner, China, and began to take on what has been the biggest deficit we've faced. And he's made progress there. And so all of a sudden, you had jobs being created in America that in the past, under the Obama-Biden policies, would have been created in China or in Mexico or somewhere else. All that was up through February. And then with the Chinese virus, COVID-19.
At least 6 people have died in an outbreak of the new coronavirus, which has now reached the United States. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has confirmed the first U.S. case has been detected in Washington state. The patient, who is in isolation, recently returned from Wuhan, China.
In accordance with the declaration, beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday, February the 2nd, the United States government will implement temporary measures to increase our abilities to detect and contain the coronavirus proactively and aggressively.
The president had to take some very tough decisions, cutting off travel, ultimately closing down a large part of the economy, going to situations that led to social isolation. All of that created additional difficulties. Fortunately, the president and the Congress were able to pass a series of bills that helped rescue the economy.
Well, thank you all very much. It's a very important day. I'll sign the single biggest economic relief package in American history, and I must say, or any other package, by the way.
So that unlike the Europeans, who are now wallowing in really long, difficult problems, and I'm talking to you from Italy, and I can tell you, the challenge in Europe, the challenge in Italy, is much greater than the challenge in the United States. And what's happening in the U.S. is we are beginning to see a rebound that is astonishing. I think when the third quarter numbers come out, the economic growth may be the highest it's been outside of World War II in American history. And that's because all of the various Trump policies are coming to bear. And so we didn't end up with the kind of unemployment people projected. It was much lower. It didn't stay as high as people thought it would. It came down much faster. And the index of small business confidence has jumped again as people look around and go, you know, this may work. Now, interestingly, as further proof of the difference between President Trump's approach, lower taxes, less regulation, more energy production, better trade deals, and the left's approach, the places in the U.S. that aren't recovering very fast, well, they all have liberal Democratic governors. They're all states where they follow the wrong policies. They have high taxes, lots of regulations, big bureaucracy, unions that are destructive. The result is, if you look at where the economy is really starting to boom again and where we're seeing unemployment really come down, they're almost all red states where, in fact, they're following very Trump-like policies, lowering taxes, less regulation, more activity to encourage the business community. And if you look at where the problems are greatest, there are places like New York, Illinois, Michigan, California, New Jersey, where the liberal Democrats who are in charge are anti-business, anti-jobs, want higher and higher taxes, more and more regulations, and they want bigger and bigger bureaucracies so the bureaucrats can join the public employee unions. This gap between red states and blue states, I should say red states that are rising and blue states that are stuck, that gap is a perfect model to then think about Biden.
If you look at Obama's last year in office, 2016, GDP growth was 1.6%. Trump's first year in office, after he cut taxes, reduced regulations, focused on domestic energy, when he went to capitalist free market policies, GDP grew to 2.9%. That's an 80% improvement in GDP.
When George Stephanopoulos asked Vice President Biden, would you raise taxes even if the economy stays weak? And Biden came back and said, I want to raise taxes in January. I don't care what the economy is.
Let me press you on that, though.
Sure.
You're going to raise the corporate tax. You're going to raise taxes on the wealthy. Is it wise to do even that when the economy is as weak as it is right now? Another 900,000 people.
You've said you would repeal all of Trump's tax cuts. But do you mean just for the wealthy or for the middle class too? Because Trump did give the middle class a tax cut.
Guess what? If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut.
Because he represents the pro-big government, pro-big union, pro-big bureaucracy system. And that system needs every tax dollar it can get. Because without it, it's going to collapse. That's why in Illinois, which has had the highest out-migration of any state in the last 10 years, the governor's trying to raise taxes, even though it'll drive even more people to leave the state. Because paying off his public employee union allies is more important to him than having businesses, and particularly small businesses, continue to grow. And so I think the real choice here is pretty stark. It's not like, oh, we're inevitably going to have a pretty good economy. This is a real choice between economic collapse and depression with Biden and economic growth and recovery with Trump. Now, it's fascinating. I did a podcast a while back with James Grant, who'd written a book on the Depression of 1920-21. That depression was a straight V. Came up here, went straight down, and they recovered straight back up. It happened so fast that the cultural memory never captured it. People didn't go around in the 20s worrying about the Depression of 1920-21. It was just an event. They got over it. That's the goal President Trump has. He wants to see us, now that we've come down, he's doing everything he can to get us to go right back up.
We want to be where we were 7 months ago. And next year will be one of the best and greatest years in the history of our country. That's what's happening economically, and that's going to lead to other things. This election is a choice between a Trump recovery and a Biden depression. He gets in, they're going to quadruple your taxes.
By having enough economic growth, you can save Medicare, you can save Social Security, because there's just a lot more money coming in. Not because you're raising taxes, but because you're putting more people to work who are getting better jobs, who have higher incomes, and therefore the taxes they pay go up, but they're going up because their incomes are going up. The opposite of a tax increase depression. Now, what Biden wants to do is virtually everything which has made New York and California and Illinois too expensive. So I just want to take these few minutes and share with you the facts, the data, the reality of what Donald J. Trump accomplished in his first 4 years, and the very real danger that we're going to go back to the Obama-Biden years. Remember, slowest recovery since the Great Depression was the 8 years of Obama and Biden.
Under the previous administration, it took 30 months to recover more than half the jobs lost in the crisis. We surpassed that milestone in fewer than 5 months.
So I think this is all very serious. And I hope that every American will realize that they're voting as though they should vote as though their job depends on it. They should vote as though their 401k depends on it. They should vote as though their pension depends on it. If they're a small business, they should vote as though their entire business depends on it, because that is what is at stake. A record of success in creating jobs, a record of failure. And so I do think the real choice is going to be a Trump recovery or a Biden depression.